Okay, my spiritual journey and awakening. Let's see here. We got to understand, I mentioned this before in another video, who's the spiritual journey and awakening for? And really look at that, and then when you get some confirmation and clarity about that, actually really fully accept that principle. Because this is important. That will help you. The spiritual awakening is for the dualistic self. It's not for the non-dual self. It doesn't know anything about awakening or sleeping. It's for the dualistic self, the human construct self. The game of life, of creation, is for this dual self to merge and fuse with the non-dual self, or the localized consciousness to merge with the pure consciousness. That never ends. It can't end. That would be the end of life and the end of experience and the end of everything, and then the pure self wouldn't even be able to recognize itself anymore, which is the whole point of creation. The pure self has to split itself a little bit and differentiate itself, so that then the self, the differentiated self that still has the pure self essence, can then recognize its source. So there's an unending depth that continues. Good. Isn't that nice? It's like eating a dessert forever, and you never get tired of it, and it just keeps getting sweeter and better. I think it's a good deal. What fueled my spiritual journey is this health karma that I had. I had very heavy health karma since I was a kid. And it's a chronic situation, which means it just progressively gets worse. Now, I've found some things because I've dedicated my whole life to trying to find a way to ease these symptoms. And they're mostly they're based in the nervous system and also my cervical spine. So there's a constant discomfort taking place. So I've found some earthbound things that help. Remember, balance. We're in the body. We got to recognize that and address that, and at the same time recognize our spiritual nature. This is the perfect balance. So I found some things that help balance the physical body to a degree. Can't be perfect. And then I've also really got deep into spiritual pointings in for the last some years. That's all my life is for now. You see, when that's all your life is for, to so-called wake up, then you're going to wake up. Now, it's not a one and you're done thing. When you have a spiritual wake up or awakening, then it's still an experience and it's going to pass. Because it's an experience. The intensity will shift, something will happen. You can't stay in some kind of ecstatic state forever. Your body would burn up. So the consciousness doesn't do that. It gives a blast of some awakening, some realizing of our true nature, and then it settles down, and then the game becomes to, you can say, stabilize in that and protect it and honor it and be vigilant about not letting the mind pull us off into other directions and things that's going to so-called sabotage this fusion that's happening between our dualistic self and our non-dual self. So those who act like they're finished, don't believe them. They'll realize that at some point that life's going to throw you a curveball, and then you're gonna have to go deeper into this self-realized practice or non-dual practice that we're in. Because if we get complacent, we lose it, so to speak. The human self loses it, only to later find it again and go deeper into it. So the sensation of losing it is worth it to feel the sensation of finding it again. Can't get away from duality, and you wouldn't want to, because then you wouldn't know you existed. All right. let me talk a little about the spiritual journey. So that's the background. That's what fueled me to go on a spiritual journey, because I wanted relief. And something inside believed that God, universe, non-duality, has the answers. That can fix everything, is what I believed. And it was good. It got me started, and so then it just had me try all kinds of different spiritual practices. I went to every religion I could. I found myself more resonating with Eastern religions, Hindu philosophy and Advaita and Sufi and all that stuff. I like the Upanishads and Shastras and Bhagavad Gita and all those scriptures. I liked. The Bible's cool also, but it's just hard to understand. They talk begotten, forgotten, and all that stuff, and I had a strong relationship with Jesus just spontaneously when I was younger, but without the whole church telling me about who he is. I just somehow I just liked his story, basically, even though the story is biased. I mean, you got to find the right book that's going to give you a better account of the story, but then, anyway. So I've mentioned before, when I was 12, I had a very strong experience. It was a cosmic universal experience. I told you, the love for everybody and everything was so strong, I couldn't handle it. And so then I prayed to God to get rid of it, and then it left me, and then I was like, damn, what did I just ask for, the peace, the love, off the charts. So there you go. There's an example of an awakening, of being in, you can say, my truest state. I was in the state of what any other master that we revere has experienced. So was I enlightened after that? No, I fell. I was a fallen angel. I fell back into darkness because that was the destiny. I had karma that hadn't been burned yet. I had experiences and desires that they weren't realized. I needed to go do that. And then the more you can say that karma started burning, then all of a sudden another spiritual experience would come. There was a time, man, I was so ecstatic. I was in true ecstasy. I was in my bed. It was like a full body orgasm. Most people think the definition of orgasm is when it's about sex. That's one small definition of orgasm. The energy goes down and then out. No, I'm talking about a whole nother level of orgasm. I'm talking about a full body orgasm when the life force is moving so strongly through every area of your body and even out. And the feeling of euphoria is so intense, you don't have to eat, you can't sleep, you can't do anything. You just lay there and moan because that's all you can do, because it feels so good. Now, you can't stay like that. How are you going to stay like that? You can't stay like that. So the universe gives you a taste, and then it'll turn the dial down a little bit. You see? There was another time... there's been a bunch of times on plant medicine where, just the small ego construct just kind of dissolved. Now, there has to still remain some individual provisional self. Otherwise, we just disappear. If there's just perfect balance, we just, you see? So, there, it's like the pure self always retains this, part and parcel silhouette self, so that it can keep tasting itself, its pure self. And that's the blessing of a spiritual practice. That's what we do. It's like the dual self is sitting here, and it's just feeling its true self. It's just contemplating. It's bringing its attention to this true formless self that it is. Just does that over and over again because it never gets boring. Everything else will get boring. Plant medicine get boring. Sex will get boring. Everything gets boring except that. So I guess my point, my summary is having these experiences doesn't make you so-called enlightened. Enlightened's just a word. It's a word pointing to the human self realizing its true nature. But like I've talked about it before, what's 100% enlightened mean? What does 100% spiritual awakening mean? What's the criteria? And then you can say, okay, there's calmness, there's peace, there's a brotherly love and compassion. Okay, but to what degree? What's the intensity of it? Like what? There's certain homeless people I feel to give to. There's others somehow I don't feel. It's like they need to learn some lesson or something. They can't I don't feel to give it to them. I don't know. It's not my business why. I go by inner feeling. So if somebody doesn't feel to give to them, maybe do they not have 100% compassion and brotherly love for everybody? What if your peace, okay, when I gave that example about being in ecstasy, is that considered enlightenment? Because I couldn't even move? What if you, let's say that's 100% ecstasy. What if you're only feeling 20% ecstasy? And how often do you got to feel that in order to be qualified to be considered enlightened or, etc.? So, I'm trying to demystify these things because the mind can take the concept of being enlightened or having a spiritual awakening and cause more trouble. It'll have this checklist that it can never attain, and then it'll just keep itself as a seeker forever. And imagine that it needs to go further. I got to go further. Oh, I didn't get it yet. And that causes more stress. And the more stress, the less you realize your true nature. The other side to this, though, see, this is the thing. The non-dual people will take this and say, I'm already awake then. Everybody's awake. Everybody's enlightened. Don't have to do anything. Doesn't matter. If I hit the guy next door, it was just a thought, dude. I didn't really hit you. Even I'm not there's not a hitter or the one to be hit. There's nothing. See, again, balance. There has to be balance. And only intuitively will God reveal to you what this balance is. Once the ego gets burnt up enough, then the intuition can speak. Otherwise, the intuition, you can't hear it because the ego, it thinks it already knows everything, and the consciousness is playing the role of the ego for a while. So it believes what the mind is saying and acting like that's truth. And then later we realize, oh yeah, it's like you could be 20, like I was in my 20s, I thought I knew, like, man, I know. And then looking back, it's like, oh man. But see, there's space for that. Doesn't matter. You try the best you can, you relax, and you let this whole thing play out. But don't disregard the human self construct because you're going to be missing something. This thing's here. This thing's here to experience, and it plays a big part in self-realization. If it wasn't for this, there wouldn't be any self-realization. So I don't know. I mean, did I share about my spiritual journey and everything? I think I said it in a nutshell. I don't have a lot of energy to speak on. You see, it's like I don't care. I don't care. Like I'm not proud of anything that the human self has done or has experienced. Like it doesn't mean much to me. I'm not interested. I'm interested, something's interested in this intangible, spiritual nature. This is what I'm interested in. I thought I was going to say one other thing, but it's just it's an ever evolving merge and fusion between this human self and this non-dual self. It doesn't end. And that's good news. So technically then I would say nobody's enlightened. At the same time, the pure self is enlightened. The human construct isn't enlightened. It'll never be 100% enlightened because it would blip out of existence. That's my message. All right, have a good day.